Welcome to this edition of When the Biomass Hits the Wind Turbine, a discussion of sustainable living and what that means to you and me. I'm Jay Warmke.
And I'm Annie Warmke.
And today we're going to talk about the gig economy, or the pay may be lousy, but at least I have no benefits.
Oh man, you're rolling
okay,
today.
I'm already dissing it. But we're joined today by Ryan Evans. And Ryan, welcome, Ryan.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. And Ryan, you're a graphic artist. You can decide how best to define yourself, but I'm going to say you're a graphic artist living in the Bay Area, Oakland, California area. Former intern here at Blue Rock Station. That's probably number one on your CV. And you're living the gig lifestyle.
And an all-around good guy.
Yeah, all-around good guy. I wrote that down on my sheet of paper here.
I see that.
Is that pretty much describe you, Ryan?
Yeah, even my girlfriend recently introduced me as a handyman, which I thought was kind of flattering. I was like, oh, I'll start using that now.
Yeah, but do you have the socks? Because I've got a pair of socks that says handyman. So.
Oh no, you should fax me some of those, Jay.
Fax you. It's like the Mason's handshake. You know, you got to show the socks to be part of the handyman guild.
But wait, you're a graphic artist. You could design your own.
Yeah, design your own socks. Okay, so Ryan, tell us a little bit. I mean, aside from the handyman, tell us a little bit about what you do and how you've become an expert on the gig economy.
Well, currently I'm actually working for a company. Everyone always asks, are you freelancing or are you working for a company? But right now I'm working for a company. No benefits. But I'm on salary and I get paid time off, that kind of thing. I work for a company doing graphic design for apparel. So socks, sweatpants, hoodies, that kind of thing. Embroidery, printing. I set up the files and send them to the factory, and then they make them.
And your process, you don't actually go into an office or anything. You just kind of work from wherever you happen to be.
Yeah, it was a kind of a 2-day a week kind of go into the office thing. But since the pandemic, we just stayed home. So what little I was already working at home 3 days a week, and now I'm just working at home 5 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you find rewarding about what you do right now?
I feel like right now I have a lot of opportunity to understand more about the mass apparel industry, to work with kind of like creative. There's things about it that are interesting and creative, even though majority of what we do is pretty silly and
mundane.
You could say, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And is this something you want to know about for future role in life?
I have a wide net of interests. I think the global supply chain system is pretty. It has a lot of potential. If humans were all perfect angels, but as it's been used, it's pretty terrible. The effects that we can see on the environment and on people. That's why we're producing it in China, not the United States, because we could never get away with the kinds of things that they get away with in China.
So how is it working? I mean, in your direct experience, I mean, you're the guy who designs the aardvark underwear, right? You sit down at your computer and they tell you, okay, we want underwear with aardvarks on it this year. And you sit down there and design it. And then what happens from there?
Well, I'll wrangle together the artwork, and it's rarely original. I'm usually taking off of an image site. That's a secret. But those are common, Shutterstock, things like that. And then I'll put together the art, scale it so that it will work at a particular size. And then I'll call out all the colors for the factory, and we use a Pantone standard. And then, I'll let my boss know. She'll send it to the factory. The factory will come back with us saying there are mistakes or good to go, and they'll send it straight to the client.
And the factory is where? In San Francisco or in Beijing or where?
All over China, mostly. I mean, we have like 1 or 2 factories in other places, but it's mostly in China. Shenzhen area, maybe.
And then they
Shenzhen.
produce it. It gets stuck on a boat and ends up being shipped to
Walmart.
Walmart. Yeah, your
Yeah,
friend.
we have a system. We don't warehouse any of our own stock. We just make deals with Walmart. They order, 100,000 units, and then we'll have the factory mail it directly to Walmart stores.
Well, before we get off this, because we are really ostensibly going to talk about the gig economy, but you had mentioned something to me where you put in some subversive art sometimes in your
You're
designs.
going to get him in trouble.
No, your boss isn't going to listen to this. So go. So
People bring that up all the time, and it's actually kind of hard to do given the number of eyes that are on an item. But you would still be surprised. Sometimes something accidentally gets through that we didn't even intend, and we're looking at it after the fact like, wow, that looks pretty bad. And it's in the store.
Okay.
Well, I wanted to know what you think about these statistics. So if we talk about, basically answer the question, what is the gig economy? And understand that it's estimated about 36% of people in this country between I guess of any age, are employed in that gig economy, according to the Gallup poll, and 53% are between 18 and 34. But then it seems like there's a big jump where people have left their full-time jobs and gone into the gig economy.
Well, what we really back up just a tad, Ryan. Why don't you give us your definition of what we're talking about? What is the gig economy?
I mean, the gig economy, first of all, as a term, is marketing spin. I think that's something that people came up with to make it seem appealing or attractive.
Yeah.
And indeed, I mean, there are lots of great things about it. When in the gig economy, ostensibly, you're an independent contractor. You decide your own hours. You make your own rules. This is the very libertarian way of presenting it. And in a perfect world, that would be awesome. We could all decide our own hours and who we want to work for and what jobs we want to take. But in practice, what we're seeing is people are actually getting siloed into sort of dead end jobs, really specific positions like Amazon delivery driver or Uber driver. Those jobs of which, of course, will be completely removed in the next 5-10 years by automation and self-driving cars and stuff. And then, also it does the double benefit of outsourcing all costs to the contractor or employee. So now you're in charge of your own healthcare. And we can have a discussion about whether healthcare should even be handled by an employer. But if you're a driver, you have all your own car maintenance, blah, blah, blah. Now Uber is renting their cars to their drivers. So, we have a sharecropping kind of thing. So it's probably like sharecropping. That's probably the most accurate way to describe it.
Well, I was going to say the gig economy really is a broad definition. It can go all the way from a migrant farm worker to a rock and roll superstar. All of those guys would be classified within the so-called gig economy.
Well, I think superstars make enough money it won't matter if they don't have
any benefits. I mean, there are definitely those that are certainly loving the style, loving the lifestyle, and we'll get into that. But I think it surprised me, as Annie had mentioned, that really about a third of everyone working in the United States would be considered an independent contractor or a gig worker.
Yeah, why is that surprising?
Well, I don't know. I guess it surprised me because I hadn't thought about it. But then also younger people in your age group, Ryan, I'm assuming you were still
He's still
young.
Almost out of that. He's almost out of that.
Right. But more than half of that age group, that demographic from 18 to 34, are in the gig economy. I mean, it is now the majority lifestyle.
And 3/4 of them say they wouldn't quit their gig job for full time. But then, the problem is there's a dark side.
Right. Okay. So let's tackle this independently. Ryan, tell us the good side first before Annie gets us directed into why it's horrible. So tell us the good thing about being an independent contractor or a gig employee.
So there was a brief time when I worked for a company as a handyman, and I bring up that example because every day was different. And so in a lot of ways, we were like contractors or gig workers, but we had central dispatch. The office fed us jobs, and we would go out and we would use our own judgment and our own tools to figure out the best solution. And that was a lot of fun for a while. I think, yeah, being able to determine your own work, determine the time that you want to work. Your weekend doesn't have to be on Saturday and Sunday. If your friends are going on a camping trip on Wednesday and Tuesday, you can go with them. There's a lot of research that says that millennials are really into intangible experiences. Well, it's probably because they can't afford houses, but things like that. So basically, freedom.
Yeah, the freedom to decide what you want to do, when you want to do it. Another thing that was brought up in some of the advantages I read was a sense of stability. I mean, which seems contrary to thinking on the surface of it. But basically, you're saying, look, if I'm working, I have 6, 7, 8 main customers. That's a lot more stable than working for a company that can fire me at any moment.
Right. You can work as much as you want. You don't have to punch in. You're not subject to the mood of a boss, like a particular single boss. You're more working with like an algorithm these days.
Mm-hmm.
So then let's get into the dark side.
That doesn't feel safe to me. I mean, you can... It just doesn't feel safe. I mean, I know I'm the wrong generation, but I want to have more security than that. I want to know that every week I'm going to have what I need to pay my bills.
Right. But that, I think that's a mythology. Anyway, I mean, you always used to tell me, head. I know, but most mythologies are in our heads, but you used to tell me all the time, when I talked about leaving my job periodically, you would say, I would say, but what about the security? We have security. And you say, that's an illusion.
Okay. I'm not talking about that, but
you're not talking about me. You're talking about that.
I'm talking in general, but I'm saying if I want to have something I can depend on, like a base amount of money that I know I'm going to earn.
Yeah.
Because I don't really have, a lot of needs, but I want to know that I've got those needs covered.
I think it's important to say, because basically if you're a gig worker, you're basically a small business owner. You are running your own business.
Well, it's your body.
And I don't think a lot of people are good at being business owners. No. I mean, is that fair to say, Ryan?
Yeah. I mean, gig is like being a small business owner, but you're outsourcing all the managerial work to a company.
Yeah, it's like I think it's indentured servitude in some ways, because if you look at what just happened in California, this last election cycle, where Uber spent millions and millions of dollars to present a campaign that got people to vote against themselves. And
isn't that the definition of politics? Spend a lot of money to get people to vote against their own self-interest.
It was one of the most expensive initiatives in state history, I believe. Yeah.
What if they'd spent that money on their drivers? Think about it. If they'd spent that money on their drivers, what a difference that would have meant to them. That's the problem.
All right. Well, before we get off the upside, right? So, Ryan, anything else, in the upside? I mean, you're basically your own boss, make your own hours. You can have a little bit more security if you're good at it.
I think to your point about security, that's unique in America because Americans are willing to work 60 hours a week. And that means, so your security is basically, you can count on 40 hours a week, whatever. You can get as much work as the algorithm will give you. And I'm again talking specifically about Amazon or Uber or something like that. But if you really need to make a car payment, you can work another 10 hours, 20 hours, no problem. You don't even have to ask, you just do it.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to interrupt this. I want to remind everybody that you are listening to When the Biomass Hits the Wind Turbine with Jay and Annie Warmke, reminding you that it is indeed the end of the world as we know it.
And thank God.
All right. It's the end of the working world. And we're joined with Ryan Evans here, and we're talking about the gig economy. And Annie's dying to jump in.
Yeah.
So jump in, Annie.
So one of the things that occurred to me is, Ryan, I'd like to know what you think. If we moved more to a basic income that would be given by the government, such as with Social Security. And in other countries like Germany, it's shown to be really amazing in terms of how it spurred people into business and to actually be healthier and happier and more well and all that. But I'm wondering what you think about that idea in this country and how that might influence the gig economy.
I've read a lot about that. I think it's better in a lot of ways than the system we have right now, because you have a lot of these companies that are finding ways, like Walmart and Amazon. They're finding ways to offload some of their costs onto central systems like welfare systems, food stamps, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Walmart's the largest recipient of food stamps in the United States.
Yeah.
Because they pay their workers so little, which is clever of them, to their credit. But what are we talking about?
She's talking about
income, a basic income,
minimum income.
Yeah, if everybody had a minimum income.
I've definitely seen, there have been tests all over the world that have shown great results. Even outside of UBI, it just in the world of international aid, researchers have found that the best way to help a poor population is just to give them money. People spend money on necessities. They spend it on food, medical care. They spend it on improving their tools, farm tractors, whatever.
Everything that pushes the economy versus giving it all to the rich people.
Yeah, but it still concerns me that we're relying on a state to make this happen for us.
But what happens if we have a basic income, then we also can do the things you're talking about where we feel better, to go camping with our friends, spend time with our family, do things that heal us. So we're not, the focus is not on capitalism, but on happiness. And I'm not talking about getting stoned and things like that. I'm talking about basically
whatever makes you happy, man.
I'm talking about, I'm ignoring him. I'm talking about a basic society, a neighborhood where people work together, and it's just a whole different focus. That's what I think it is.
The interesting direction to take it is when you do away with universal income, but you also do away with private capital, in the sense that you don't have Jeff Bezos owning, $130 billion of a company. You have the Amazon employees owning the company. So that's the best gig economy. They have equity in the company, so their efforts to produce, to do a good job, directly benefit themselves in terms of like a stock price or whatever, and then they can decide how to invest the dividends. You don't have to rely on a state. If we have another Donald Trump, and that's going to happen, that's going to be another character who's going to say, "Oh, I'm going to control everyone by removing this UBI, universal basic income, or cut it." The Republicans are always threatening to cut Social Security. The best solution for that is to invest in a Social Security that's more community-based, that's less reliant on the state. This is my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like, I know that a lot of the objections, and you raised it slightly in this idea of, I know we're getting a little bit off the gig economy, but this is all related, is saying, okay, you hate that the government is now giving or the source of this revenue. But on the other hand, if you were to just say, look, instead of having all of the existing social service programs and the associated bureaucracy and all of the corporate welfare and everything that the government's already spending, why not simply take that cash and divvy it up amongst folks? And I think you would find that they would make better decisions. So I sound like a Republican senator here, right?
It's definitely a better system than what we have now, which is sort of king of the jungle. In fact, it's not even king of the jungle, because the corporations have manipulated the state to actively help them. So Boeing is getting a lot more help during the pandemic than, the small mom and pop shops.
Yeah, well, lots of small mom and pop shops aren't getting anything because they set it up so you have to have at least one employee that has a W-2 form. So,
Right.
so people like us can't even get any assistance.
All right. Well, I'm going to direct you back to let's focus a little bit on the downside of being a gig employee. You had mentioned basically you might be broke. I mean, that's a bad side, right? Because basically you're reliant upon the upside is you can earn as much as you can earn. The downside is you may not earn anything or
Yeah,
earn
but what
very
happens
little.
if your car breaks down and
That's an
Uber's not going to
example,
repair it for you?
right? You have no safety net.
Yeah.
All right. So what else, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, you're on the hook for your own healthcare, and that's an ongoing conversation about whether uh, companies need to be paying for their employees' healthcare, or if we should do some more centralized system. Um, all the costs are yours,
Mm-hmm.
and especially the costs that a company would otherwise have to pay. It's my perception that a lot of gig workers tend to be working for these online digital platforms like Uber, and or a lot of people make money on YouTube or TikTok, whatever. Um, and there's the I think that one of the keys is that there's like a few very successful people, especially on a lot of the media gigs, and then everyone wants to try doing it and find that they can't actually make it work. So anyway, so you have a single platform, right? You may have many clients, but you're still being mediated by one platform.
Sure.
And Uber is determining everything else other than your hours. They're determining your pay. There was, I think it was like a year or two ago, there was a big kerfuffle over Uber's decision to lower rates for drivers or something. So what used to be actually quite a lucrative job, driving for a ride service, is now just a job.
Right. I saw somewhere that they average about $9.50 an hour.
Yeah, when you factor in gasoline and maintenance, it's not that much money. It is very low effort because you're sitting in a chair, but driving is stressful, and I'm not sure you could pay me $20 an hour to drive all day.
Yeah,
Sure.
plus the possibilities of accident and people hurting you. And
Well, it also strikes me that this kind of setup, I mean, if you're in a formal Uber or something, that may be different. But as you're a consultant, it may drive a lot of this economy off the books, so to speak, into the underground economy, I would imagine, because I don't think a lot of these folks who get into this realize they're now on the hook for their own tax deductions and filings, their self-employment tax. So they're paying, both sides of the Social Security. And before they know it, their actual net income is down to next to nothing if they follow all the rules.
Yeah, the financial and tax literacy is not good enough. I think there's a lot of ways to take advantage of it, as I think you will be the first to say. But I think a lot of these people that are driving, they're just trying to pay for student loans. They're trying to get out of their parents' house. They're trying to go to school, whatever. And they're not going to be looking up tax loopholes.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so let's move on to what you're planning to do. We know that you are planning to maybe somehow balance a bit in the gig economy, but to have some future plans that move you beyond where you are.
And bear in mind, your current employer is not listening.
Yeah. I think in general, the idea of a gig economy it sounds pretty nice. I've been moonlighting as a handyman over the past year, mostly just work for neighbors and things. But that provides a little extra cash here and there. I still want to limit my work, but having an extra skill like that that gives me a lot of security. And I think in the spirit of gigginess, I think a lot of people should look to that. People should learn more about electrical work, and I don't mean try to impersonate an electrician, because a lot of electricians are listening to this and saying like, what is he implying? We should get unlicensed amateurs out there? That's going to be ridiculous.
Well, the electricians need to learn graphic design as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, it could be handy for their business, certainly. and it's a fallback if someone wants them to design a holiday card or something. But I think people should apprentice in situations like that. I have had a pretty unconventional career path, bouncing from farms to shop work, as in carpentry or handyman stuff, to back to graphic design again, which was my degree. But my plan is to try and do more farming in the future, and that's definitely for better or worse, that's a gig economy. It's seasonal. But my ultimate goal is to at least run my own farm, whether or not I own it or rent it, because leasing land is a popular option. But that's where I'm trying to go. I just found that my job isn't very satisfying. It's never been satisfying. I never wanted it, but it provided me security and helped me afford healthcare and the other luxuries that I enjoy. And but I'm over that now. I want to try to. I see farming as a way to affect positive change in the world. As it's a great skill. Again, this is like a fallback skill for myself. I can always make money on a farm, even if it's not a lot. It's something.
At least you'll have something to eat.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, one of the things that occurs to me, though, is that, we often have interns that come here that are city boys and they want to be farmers. And I just wonder how you think that transition is going to work for you coming out of Oakland, California.
I think it's going to be really difficult. But what we're seeing now is there's a pretty remarkable proliferation of small farms in the past 10 years. And these are people that were professionals, people that were in academia, some of them, people that haven't had a history in farming that just decided that the grind in the city wasn't enough for them. I had a friend that I worked with in Chicago who told his partner, he said, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired of driving a desk all day. And I empathize with that now, and he's running his own farm now. It's in Michigan. So what I was saying was a lot of people are starting these small farms, and they're producing high volume, mostly, a lot of them are split between CSAs and farmers markets, but they're growing soil, super important.
Right.
They're making an income. And a lot of these guys, if you get really nerdy about it, you can fuss over it. You don't have to do a lot of backbreaking labor, and you can still, in some places, work, a 6-figure income out of it, for you and a partner. So it's not, blowing anyone's minds, but you can raise a family with that.
Okay, well, Ryan, we'll talk about gig farms on another episode, but going to cut you off, and I want to thank Ryan Evans for joining us. And you have been listening to When the Biomass Hits the Wind Turbine with Jay and Annie Warmke. We want to thank Ryan, and we want to thank our Emmy Award-winning producer, Adam Rich. And we want to thank you for spending just a little bit of time with us. And as your grandmother hopefully told you, secret to a happy and sustainable life is...
play nice with others, clean up your own mess, and Jay, you better eat those veggies this week.
Right, from our gig farm. Till next time, bye-bye.
I know the stars are dancing in the firelight. Soon we'll be together, and all will be revealed. Mother Earth will sing, and her children will be healed. 'Cause I see the morning glory blossom in the night. I know the stars are dancing in the twilight. Soon we'll be together, and all will be revealed. Mother Earth will sing, and her children will be healed.
You can find more information on living sustainably in our unsustainable world at bluerockstation.com.